Hi, my name is Olushola Pacheco and welcome to another episode of Impact Africa. The conversation continues with topical issues around Nigeria. And today in the studio with me I have Seun Onigbinde, the founder and director of BudgIT, right?
Yeah.
BudgIT is a financial transparency platform that seeks to look at government spending and ensure that the citizens are being served and their taxes are doing the right jobs. Thank you so much for coming, Seun.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Let's talk about budgets.
Okay.
The journey, you guys have been in the journey for how many years now?
6 years now.
6 years.
Yeah.
6 years of pushing for transparency and government accountability. How's the journey been so far?
Interesting because we started based on an hackathon, like co-creation of, and then we've moved from budgets to even simplifying it to tracking public budgets. Part of the things we also do is we do some work on extractives or like that because it's hard to talk about Nigerian finances without not checking the performance of the other industrial sector. So we do a lot of work on the extractive sector too. Then we also help institutions like media, civil society, government to be much more efficient, the willing institutions. The journey has been interesting because it's been highs and lows. Highs when we get an opportunity that we are having a more transparent and accountable society. Lows when our work is misconstrued as opposition or even like some domination of the Nigerian space.
I think at some point you had some of your trackers, one of your tracker arrested at some point.
In Niger State, it was Niger State project tracking officers was traced to Kaduna and was arrested there.
Well, do you actually tell the states that you have trackers in their state who are tracking?
We don't, because it's the right. See, we are not supposed. We're just like a middleman, but we're not supposed to even be on one. This is the role of every citizen in Nigeria. There's a budget. There are projects in the budget. You take those documents and you track them. You ensure that they deliver the right quality, they deliver at an efficient cost, so that the resources can be enough for people. And so he was just doing his job, and the senator took that information, spoke to the police. Police decided to arrest him for very ridiculous allegation, and at the end of the day, was dragged in an inhumane condition to Abuja. But after we are able to raise our alarm bells, it was finally released. Yeah. So it's only the dangers or the risk of what we do.
You are seen as more or less like a non-governmental organization.
Definitely.
And the work you do has been funded by the likes of the Bill Gates Foundation, Ford Foundation, to mention a few. Recently, we had, sometime last year, we had the issue of the NGO bill, where the Senate wanted to regulate the funding. They have to give approval because according to them, they are trying to link funding and terrorism. They said there's a link and stuff like that. Do you think that bill is targeted at platforms like yours? Because if you don't have money, you cannot function. If there's a regulation and money comes in, they can decide when to release the money for you, which means that the work you are supposed to do in 2018 can be dragged into 2019 or 2020 with red tape.
You're right. There are bad NGOs. We have to first accept that. And there are even NGOs that are set up by politicians to defraud the entire system. And so, you don't see because you have a dick now, then you decide to cut off your hair. That's not the solution. And the major point of the bill is that it tampers with the operational independence of NGOs. You need to go register every year. There's a government, there's other bureaucratic institutions that are going to regulate over 800,000 NGOs. How does that happen? Every single activity you have to do, you need to get approval to do that. When you look at the whole long list and how bureaucratic that structure is, you know that that's not the solution. There are enough public institutions that are already regulating NGOs. We have the CAC when it comes to registration. We have a FIRES when it comes to tax exemptions. You have FRC when it comes to your corporate governance. You have even the EFCC has this KUMU, that also about money laundering and terrorist activities. So we have a bouquet of this. And now the question is, why do you need another new entire entity? When the question is that most people are existing already are not strong enough. They are not even applying the law as they should. So I guess that was the cry of the NGO. Nobody is against us not having the right organizations who are doing the work and ensuring that we stay within the ambit of the law and they are not used as fronts for terrorist financing. Nobody's saying.
Do you at any point think it's targeted at NGOs like yours,
yes,
who are directly at the forefront of asking government for transparency in financial transactions?
Definitely. BudgIT, Amnesty International, Public-Private Development Center, different NGOs will really put the heat on government. Because it could also be an NGO and your primary space is to work with government. But some of us, we work and we also work outside it. So that's always been a challenge. You find organizations, trying as much as possible, trying to hold government to check. And the NGO bill is directly trying to undermine them, including budgets.
So what do you think can be done to regulate the NGOs without hampering their work that they do?
Yeah, so first thing that we need to know is that there are laws and there are institutions on ground that currently regulate NGOs. You are supposed to submit your annual reports. You're supposed to have filings.
Which you do.
Yeah, which we do, and which all. So we do annual reports. We are supposed to have audited statement. Everything like that you're supposed to do. Now the question, you need to go beyond that.
Sorry to cut you. Do you make extra money apart from the funding that you get from the?
So we have a separate entity called BudgIT.co or Fitna. Okay. It's registered as a business and it pays taxes. It pays withholding.
What do you generally do with that?
So private organizations, consulting and the rest. So because we understand how delicate our brand is and how we ensure that we follow the law to the letter. So we created another entity called Coded Budget, and what we do is that we meet private clients, CSOs, NGOs in a consulting mode or in a contractual mode. It's not like a grant where it's given by a non-profit foundation. So that's exactly that's how the difference emanates. So for us, for us it's just about, I feel we need more of self-regulation from NGOs. In the US, there's a group called TechSoup that before you can even get grants for any meaningful non-profit organization, you go through the vetting process of TechSoup. Even BudgIT does that. We go through the vetting process for some of the foundations like Ford, Gates Foundation, they're able to fund. In the US, before they're able to fund, they check all your documentations. Are you registered? Do you comply with the law? So we need to maybe be the localized version for Nigeria. And I guess that's what we've been thinking through. But even the non-profit sector, things are very, very serious going forward.
And do you think that the government's concerned that NGOs are being used as channel for funding for terrorism? Do you think these are just smoke screens or other things that they are trying to stop, or are these allegations are they founded in any way?
I don't think it's true, because how many NGOs have you found in Nigeria? How many NGOs have you found in Nigeria? Show them to me. Nobody has been able to point to 1, 2, 3 to say we found this NGO as a front or as a conduit for terrorist financing. We have not. This is the same argument in Kenya. This is the same argument in Uganda. When we have a government tending towards repression, security or sovereignty is used as a small folder to be able to repress the society. This is the same thing that had Russia chase out all the NGOs to say they're directly mainly in the domestic affairs of the country. Most things that NGOs push for, transparency, accountability, good governance, are not Western values. They are human values. They're things that, if for a society to properly work, you need to be open and transparent on how public resources are spent. That's nothing to do with about you being remote controlled from an entity that is based in the US or is based wherever in the country. We just want the society to work efficiently for people. And so the NGOs do good work, but the question is that sometimes we have systems, we have governance systems or politicians who just don't want to have the heat on them, who just want to have that free reign to do whatever they like. And the NGOs are the ones that are constantly putting them into check. So the people with the authority of the state will want to definitely restrict them. And that's what we have with the NGO.
So looking at the work that you do with BudgIT, it puts you on the edge in terms of the fact that you cannot just associate with just anyone.
Yeah.
Your work cannot contradict a BudgIT. But at the same time, the work that you do brings you in contact with all sorts of political elements. And it's very, very difficult sometimes when people say BudgIT is trying to follow up on financial transparency of the government, and in the same space, There are pictures of you attending events with governors and seminars and things like that. Does it bother you in any way when people come against you like that, saying you guys are probably just another set of youths who want something, who want to be in power or something, and that's why you're doing what you're doing?
Thank you. I get that comment a lot, but something that I know is that I don't want anything from government. We have a very standing policy in budget that we don't take funds from Nigerian Treasury. We don't, the governor, you can't even pay for anything that we come, wherever service we render for a public institution.
Not even flight tickets?
Not even flight tickets, no. Not even, maybe we could, maybe an accommodation if you pay for it, but not even give us the money to, no. Not even per diem, not even thank you money. We don't take that. And it's our own golden rule in budget for every staff. And once you breach that rule, you're shown out the door. It's a standard.
Looking at your work with budget, we've been able to talk about I followed the conversation and then open contracting, where I would use a state like Lagos State. I'm from Lagos, so I'm very interested. There's been talks of development. I think they passed the highest budget so far in 2017. But I would think that a government that during the financial crisis refused the bailout from the federal government would be at the forefront, because they earned quite a lot, would be at the forefront to say we're earning quite a lot, we're at the forefront of collecting taxes and ensuring that taxes are paid. Our IGR is absolutely fantastic because Lagosians are paying their taxes. But why is a state like Lagos State not at the forefront of opening their books to tell you that Ali Mosho Road was constructed with X amount, Festac Road was done with this, not just putting it all together and say we maintain roads with this amount?
When it comes to Lagos, there's a huge challenge of transparency, and it's been happening. There are laws.
Was it always like this?
It's always been like this.
You mean Lagos books have never been open to the public?
It's never been open. It's open in a way, but it communicates almost nothing. Like you have a budget where you can't even see breakdown line items. For the federal government now, you can know how much a particular section of road will be constructed. In Lagos, what you get is construction of roads, 40 billion naira. Now, what does that complicate? Nothing. You don't even know the roads. And Lagos doesn't have a freedom of information law. In fact, twice, Lagos has gone to court saying that the case is already in the appeal court, that the Freedom of Information Act does not apply to it. Considering that, so it's a contradiction, and that's always my own problem. That you're trying to take people's taxes, you're trying to tell them to pay more tax, but at the same time you're not transparent enough so that they can hold you accountable. So I guess that's why how much success we feel we have in Lagos today. We're not optimizing it. Lagos takes much more IGR than almost 30 states combined in this country, and I don't see that matching development, no matter how much we've lost.
Are there states that have their books open with each line item, this road, that road, this is what we've done?
Yeah,
in Nigeria here.
No state in Nigeria has gone into that level of transparency that utopian people like me would imagine. But let's even start from the budget. Like we have a project that we work with Kaduna State, and it's a project with so much of independence where we say, this is Kaduna State. This is your budget. These are the line items breakdown that we can hold you accountable to. We do that with Kaduna State. Then we move from that, we go to the next phase, which is your budget implementation report. Lagos does that, but the details are still not good enough. Then you move from that to the audited statement. Every single step, the details that you expect to have. Lagosian, you stay in Lagos. How many projects in Lagos can you say this is the X amount, or this is the whole process that this project got into the hands of this contractor? It's not the way democracies run, and we can't be efficient that way. We can say this is one of the best performing states just because it also has huge resources, and it also has huge expectations. It has
quite a number of, in terms of population, it's almost 3-4 times the size of many states.
Yeah.
So it's just common sense that when people pay taxes, they will generate more.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, is there anything that can be done to force the hand of a state like Lagos State to be more open about their spending, Because at the end of the day, if you want to lock up the offices and say they're not paying taxes, I should be able to demand what the government is what the government is doing with my money.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's logical. You know, there's this American word that says no taxation, no representation. When you pay taxes, you deserve a voice to be represented. The problem is that we need to put more citizens' pressure on that. No system actually yields on itself. It's constant external pressure that will come from citizens. And sometimes it looks like it's just BudgIT single conversation. It looks like we have some certain interest. It looks like even maybe we have some certain political interest. That's why we're asking this question. We are not. We're just trying as much as possible to ensure that public resources are optimized for the people.
There was a time in 2017 that it was in the news about a state trying to make you a commissioner or something, or a special advisor at some point. A lot of people carried the news and ran with it. I think we were classmates at some point. Yes, we were classmates at some point, and I did ask the questions at that time, which you ended up debunking that it wasn't true, and you didn't, up until now, you haven't taken any position with any government. Did that affect the people who are sponsoring you, the likes of Bill Gates Foundation and the Ford Foundation? What was their response to hearing such a news?
To be safe, most of these foundations that fund BudgIT's work give us a whole lot of operational independence. They do allow us to do our project as much as we can. There's some rules, and those rules are not their own rules. The rules are set by the US government, which is called non-lobbying rules, which means there's a level that we can decide to advocate for change of laws and everything. It's a bit complex. But to be sincere, most of them don't really care about how we do our work. Once they have the trust in us to say, we can deliver this, they go ahead and support us. And for me, I'm not willing to take any position in government. There was a time here, the Kaduna State, it was actually not my own position. It was a seat for the civil society in their Fiscal Responsibility Commission. Okay. And I was nominated to take that seat on behalf of the civil society. I guess right now, I guess the notion is maybe to be more better that someone from Kaduna takes that seat, you know. And I guess that's why I feel resonates more within my own team. And because I presented myself in front of the Kaduna State House of Assembly, and I was rejected, you know. And I guess it came from that one too. And I also accept that point that someone from Kaduna should sit on the Fiscal Responsibility Commission for Kaduna.
Because you can't physically be in Kaduna.
I can support from the technical side to give all the support to the team. You know, but I think Kaduna is one of the states that are doing things properly, you know, on the financial side. Yeah.
At this point, you've been able to get funding, and it ensures that your work continues. This is 6 years on the line. At what point? Because funding does stop. It does stop at some point. If it doesn't look like the government will be transparent at any point, or if the interests of the people sponsoring you becomes something that they have to step aside, are you going to be interested in raising funds from the citizens in order to be able to do what you do? Are you allowed to do that?
We are allowed to do that. We're allowed to raise funds from citizens. And it's something that we have to think through, developing a framework for it.
It's quite a lot of work. If you're doing this, you have to be able to sustain yourself and your family as somebody who is chasing financial transparency of the government. And, you know, people tend to be wary. People tend to get tired after a while when it seems like they're pushing and the corruption in the system is pushing back. How do you intend to go about this in the near future where it feels like, okay, the funding has run its course? What do you do? Yeah,
one thing we're always thinking through BudgIT is we're going concern. We try as much as possible to also think through how do we build a sustainable structure for ourselves. And we have a business end that's fully owned by BudgIT, which is, we have what we call a separate private firm, which pays its taxes, which run its own costs.
So you guys still plug back profits to order to
do the work, but it's not huge enough. It's like 10% of our entire income.
Personally, do you get tired of pushing?
So once in a while you have
pushing and trying to change the status quo.
Once in a while you have your doubts. Once in a while you get very shaken. I'm not the kind of person that believes that you just have to keep running on. You get shaken and you have to realign, rethink everything. The Mothoni issue that one of our project tracking officers was arrested was a real big issue. You know, it was when the mother was calling and the family was calling. like why do we have to go through all of this? But you also have to be, like if you don't want to get wet,
do you
you
have
don't
the
jump into.
services of lawyers who are actually
Yes, we do.
volunteering to make this
Yeah,
work?
we do. We have lawyers, we have practitioners who really believed in our cause and are taking this up. But one thing we do is sustainability is key to our work. It's one of the key pillars of our 5-year strategy. And one of the things we're doing is how do we build an enduring capital structure for ourselves? Maybe an office space, and maybe we now start thinking through an endowment fund. The budget itself needs an endowment fund where we're able to only maybe use the interest of such funds to run our work continuously.
You are a Bloomberg Media Initiative graduate, which I am as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they talked about was they were trying to raise financial journalists who would be able to follow government spending and things like that. And BudgIT itself recently had, you've taken on fellows who are mostly journalists and things like that. Tell me about the BudgIT Fellowship and how do people get on it?
So we have a BudgIT Media Fellowship. We just ran the first round and we're reviewing currently so that we can position ourselves for another round. What we do is we do an open call. We basically look for journalists and print on web, and also look at people who are also strong on mainstream. I call it mainstream media and also digital media. Bring them all together. What we do is we want them to write data-driven stories. That's like our key goal, because it's about changing the culture of writing, which is not just writing on the basis of anecdotes and long narratives, but being able to make sure that it's fact-based and it's data-driven, and also in company with the designs and graphics that makes them much more presentable. We run with 6 people. We had great stories, like there was one on Desiani about the whole saga with Olushola. There were stories by Anna Ojo and Abang Messi. Now we're going to start another new round, possibly around May, and we'll get on the fellows around July. It runs from July to December every year, and it goes through a fair competitive process. Where we have an independent auditor, who checks.
And the end game is to raise more financial journalists who will be able to tell the real
stories on the ground.
Yeah. You are at the forefront right now. You have a lot of young leaders in your network. We have the 2019 coming. We had the conversation with the not too young to run people campaign at some point. Do you ever consider that with everything that you know about governance, how it is to run a state, budget breakdowns, and things that you feel that the governments are not doing right now? Do you ever think at any point you would step in to say, look, I've seen enough, I've done enough, I want to be part of the restructuring of this country? Is this something that you're looking at in the future?
Yeah, I would be lying to myself if I'm not, if I'm not, but there's a verse in the Bible that says, if the foundation is destroyed, what will the righteous do? So if you don't get there on the right foundation, you find out that you become the same thing you criticize. So it's about thinking through all of that. I guess that's what things in my mind. That it's not something to rush to. It's not something to understand. It's not as important as now as the work I do. The work I do, I think, is very significant for governance to be effective in Nigeria. But at a point in time, you also feel you need to step in and take action. You also need to go out and plunge into the ring and take some move. But it also has to come through the right foundation. If I don't feel the current political platform, not parties, but political platforms that we have right now are structured or are right enough to deliver the kind of governance that I envisage for Nigeria. I don't think so. And I guess I have to think through all of that before I can say I want to take this opportunity.
In the financial space of Nigeria right now, in terms of leadership and governance, you're like enemy number one.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yes, because a government who is not financially transparent, and we've had the cases of IDP funds being looted, we've had the cases of outrageous amounts used for cutting grasses, which I feel a normal lawnmower would have done so much for less. And a very brutal system where the governors are not afraid to use law enforcement to get the people that they feel are against them. Do you ever get scared? Do you ever get worried of retaliation or just being at the center of the abuse of power?
I agree with you. That gets everybody worried. But sometimes people say if if you don't want to get wet, you don't jump into a swimming pool.
You don't walk in the rain.
Yeah. You don't walk in the rain. You basically understand that it comes with its own challenges, and we've gotten threats. Even BudgIT staff, like what happened to our staff being arrested. It's just the courage that pushes us on, and hopefully on the grace of God to protect and guide us. It's not like we can, even if we hire all the entire security of this world, not like we can really protect ourselves. Just be much more careful and much more.
So from what you've seen, traveling Nigeria, trying to look at the financial records, how much of a mess are we in as a country financially?
We're in a mess because we're still very, very dependent on a sole commodity in some sort of way. And to determine the whole direction of the economy, oil is the issue. I'm happy you discussed about oil too, because the challenge is that how do we build an economy that thrives strongly on the sweat of the people, one.
Because the conversation we had about oil and gas, it said the Nigerian GDP only has 9%.
Yeah, but it's also responsible.
Of oil and gas.
But it's also responsible for like close to 60 to 65% of public sector revenues. So that's where the challenge comes in. It's also responsible for close to 90 to 95% of the foreign exchange. The entire activity in the economy is small when you look at oil in itself, but what it brings to the table is huge compared to what it is. It's like you're a big man that went to Harvard, and you came back to Nigeria. And the best job you could get is like to get a bus conductor. That's like the method for Nigeria. Nigeria is huge, Nigeria is big, but it actually punches below its weight when it comes to what exactly it brings on the table. And I guess that's where the challenge of Nigeria is. We are a country of 180 million people. If you distribute our revenue per person, it's almost like one of the smallest in the world. We have a tax to GDP that's one of the lowest in the world. We have a VAT that is one of the lowest in the world. So when you look at that's the biggest bane of public sector. It's not because of our expenditure. Our expenditure is huge. There's so much waste in it. But there's not enough money in the pocket of government itself to deliver results. Unfortunately, even the little we have is not properly efficiently managed. So that makes it a bigger dilemma in itself.
It's been said that we are at a point where we are under the most insensitive government right now. I'm not going to direct any questions towards government or anything like that. But looking at the general well-being of Nigeria, how close are we to a breakdown? How close are we to bankruptcy? There's been a lot of conversation about government borrowings recently. It's quite much that we can't keep up with how much they're borrowing, what are the consequences for people. What can you and I do about trying to get government to stop this constant borrowing of money? Because the government, if they're not re-elected, 4 years they're gone. But you and I
will bear the
brunt in the long term when the foreign bodies start to clamp on us and asking us to devalue our money, giving us terms and conditions that make the life of the children in the future a lot more difficult.
You're very right, Shola. It's borrowing is not bad. Lagos is one of the most indebted states, but also Lagos is a state that, despite the economic crisis, it was able to cover its own expenses. So it's about you do borrow relative to your size. That's very, very critical. Nigeria is borrowing so fast now. But first question: are we borrowing relative to our size? Yes. When you look at the size of our GDP, our borrowing is small. But when you look at the size of our revenue, our borrowing is getting scary because we are using almost 60%, close to 60% of our revenue in servicing public debt. So that becomes a problem. It's like you have 100 naira and you spend 60% to pay back money you owed before. So how are you going to even live for now? And that's why almost the entire capital expenditure of government is borrowed also again. So we continue to borrow. So in some way, that's the first way. Are we borrowing exercise? Our revenue is not rising fast. But we are borrowing so fast. That's a big trigger, a big worry for me. Second one is, what are we borrowing for? It's like someone proverbially, you go and start borrowing to have another party, you have another borrow to do a wedding ceremony or to have a burial ceremony. You're going to run into trouble. So we are borrowing for sometimes, most projects we are borrowing for are frivolities, are not the base structure of the economy. Some of which are, for example, we're going to do a huge outlay of a real project. And I ask myself this question, I'm asking people, what's the self-liquidating factor for this? That means, will this real project, have you done the math? Will it pay for
generate
revenue that will pay for itself?
Pay for it?
Is this our biggest problem? Our biggest problem right now is power. We have a grid system that is not strong enough. We have a gas infrastructure that can deliver, that can evacuate gas from the fields or from the plants, even down to the transmission. Our transmission structure is weak. Why don't we put enough resources into that space, one at a time? But it looks like the only thing we want to borrow is the Chinese are offering us $6.7 billion now. It's free money. You pay over maybe a period of 30 years.
At some point, we had a loan for healthcare that was paid off by the Bill Gates Foundation.
Yep.
And I kind of felt bad that if my government is not, they don't care enough to understand. It's not an achievement that the Bill Gates Foundation paid off a debt that the government should have been able to pay off while taking care of its people. It's
a shame, because we're in the spirit of this Black Panther, and when I watched it, I'm like, this is a real metaphor. They were talking about Nigeria.
Seen it, so there was no spoilers.
Yeah, this is a metaphor. This is what Nigeria could have been. I'm sure you would say, this is a metaphor of what Nigeria, because the most advanced economy in all of Africa is South Africa. And if you look at South Africa, about like 20-something years ago, we're still under a strong white rule. We were
free. We were free.
Yeah, to be the strong force of Africa, the biggest example of the black race. We were supposed to be, like Nigeria is supposed to be one, and we failed woefully. And now look at us, carrying begging bowls around the world, to so that we can pay to immunize our own children, because we're winning with Japanese countries.
Lastly, I would ask you this: 6 years in the making, do you have any regrets? Would you, if you had to go back, would you still step aside and say, you know what, this is stressful, it's not worth chasing? Would you do it again?
I would do it again. I would do it again.
Despite the stress?
Because you feel that you're delivering value. And I personally feel that we might not be changing everything, but we're making a big difference.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to have you here.
Thank you so much.
To be here today. We hope that the NGO bill doesn't go any further, so that we can continue to have platforms like yours doing the things that you do. Thank you so much for coming on the show. That's it for today on Impact Africa. Today we've talked with Seun Onigbinde, and the conversation still ties down to 2019. If the government is spending money anyhow or borrowing money that they cannot pay back, it's time for you to get your voter's card and look forward to looking at the policies and ensuring that this doesn't continue. Your vote counts. You have a voice. Get your PVC and make sure you vote. From me to you, my name is Olushola Pacheco, and this is Impact Africa. I'll see you on this same channel, same time next week. Do have an amazing day. Bye.